Hi everyone, welcome back to Lifting the Lamp. I'm Frater Eleftheria, and tonight I'm going to be talking about some very interesting topics to do with things that have been happening in pop culture. Sometimes, something happens in the culture where some esoteric knowledge, some really deep esoteric knowledge can break through into the mainstream. And that's something that's kind of happened in the cultural moment we're in now. And I want to talk a bit about it. And specifically, I'm talking about the release of Kendrick Lamar's new album, GNX, which covers a lot of very interesting themes like reincarnation, past life regression, fallen angels, and redemption or repentance, and how all of those things are kind of tied together. So that's what I'm going to be talking about tonight. And yeah, there's a lot of really fascinating topics of discussion there. So, let's jump straight into it. I hope that you enjoy this video. So I must admit, I'm not really a big fan of rap music. Never have been. It's just not my jam. I was much more of a metalhead in school when I was younger, in my 20s. I liked more contemporary metal bands as well as the classic metal bands. I was a massive fan of Iron Maiden. So that was kind of my musical taste, and it has broadened since then, but I'm not really a fan of rap music, generally speaking. But I can appreciate the lyrics of Kendrick Lamar. And I've been introduced to Kendrick Lamar through my wife. She really likes his stuff. And his lyrics are really meaningful and really deep and explore some really important themes, including spiritual themes. And he's done it again. And this time, Kendrick Lamar has been really candid in talking about his own spiritual experiences and his own kind of exploration to dig down and find out about his soul heritage. In GNX, he talks about past life regression, the technique of past life regression to go back and discover past lives. This is usually done through hypnosis, somebody hypnotizing you and then getting the memories out that way. And this seems to be something that Kendrick Lamar has done. And he actually goes into quite a bit of detail, I would say, in kind of disclosing some of the previous incarnations that he seems to have uncovered. And more than that, he hints at being associated with the fallen angels, perhaps even being a reincarnated fallen angel himself, and that being sort of the beginning of the cycle of incarnation for him at that point of the fall. He talks in his song Reincarnated about Isaiah chapter 14. He references it. This, of course, is the verse in the Bible that deals with the fall of Lucifer. I don't think that Kendrick is saying he is Lucifer, because in his previous kind of songs, he's talking about Lucifer in the third person there. But he does seem to be associating himself with the ones who fell, because, of course, Lucifer was not alone, but brought an entire host with him. And he talks about the process of reincarnation in the form of a human being as a form of rehabilitation. And so this is fascinating. So it's kind of suggesting that Kendrick remembers being some kind of angelic being who fell, and then being born as a human being over multiple lifetimes as not a divine punishment, but more of like a restorative kind of a justice rather than a punishment. Would probably be a better word, but it's some kind of a karmic debt that he needs to pay, and a karmic lesson that he needs to learn by living these successive lives. And so that, to me, seems to be what he's suggesting his kind of soul journey looks like from life to life. And so it's way out there. And surprisingly, people seem to be taking him at his word and not just saying that it's some character that he's made up, a fictional character for the album. People seem to be acknowledging his sincerity in this, and people are looking into past life regression now because of this. And so I wanted to kind of look at some of those themes and give my opinion on whether I think Kendrick is for real. And as it probably will come as no surprise to anybody here, I think that he's legit. I think that he has genuinely had a spiritual experience. And so I want to break down, based on my own research into these topics and my own experiences through my own past life regressions and other things that I've done, about these different topics: reincarnation, angels, higher beings, the path of redemption. I want to break down what Kendrick seems to be saying here and bring my own knowledge to bear and give a bit of an explanation of what I think he's talking about and where this appears in other traditions, in other esoteric schools, as something that is within the realm of possibility. So the first proposition that Kendrick makes, which is perhaps a big one for some people, is that reincarnation is real. I don't want to go into too much depth with this. I believe that reincarnation and rebirth are real. There is some truth to those concepts. I've given a more in-depth explanation on my thoughts on reincarnation and rebirth. So I'll link a video that I've done on that in the description below, and perhaps I will link some other videos just talking about my own past life experiences there as well. And that should give a good kind of idea of what I think of reincarnation. But I think that it is something that is true on some level, because we're always changing into something else, even in this life. And because we live in a karmic causal universe, there is no action that we do that does not have some other reaction somewhere else, some ripple effect, sometimes in the form of another living organism that comes after us and extends beyond this life. So I think that there are grounds for some kind of reincarnation for that reason alone. But check out those videos for more information. So reincarnation is a thing, but that's not the only doozy that Kendrick gives us in his album. He also talks about angels and these angelic beings that are really real. I've spoken about angels on this channel. I've spoken at length at how I've had experiences which I can only explain as me communicating with angelic intelligences to gain knowledge and wisdom. But the thing about that is it's really kind of like an internal experience that I'm describing. I mean, there are external things that happen and things that I learn from outside of me that I kind of intuit by communicating with these angels. But the whole process of seeing them, of talking to them, of sensing them, is kind of happening inside my head. And so I've always left the possibility open when I'm talking about that phenomenon, that these angels are really just a part of my own consciousness. Like it could be just my superconscious mind talking to my conscious mind and creating an outcome that way. It could be the way that it goes down. A more bold proposition, I suppose, would be to say that, no, there are definitely these entities which can be described as angelic entities, which really do exist, and they're out there, and people can have encounters with them, and they can interact with the human race, and they can influence the human race, and we can see them, like I can see a Christmas tree over there. That would be an even more bold proposition. Do I believe that? Well, actually, I do. I haven't really spoken about this before, and there are reasons for that. but I have actually had encounters with beings of light. And I don't just mean like seeing something in my head in a scrying session, like in Enochian magic. I mean like I have put an intention out there before that I would like to meet some kind of higher, spiritually advanced being that's out there in the cosmos somewhere. And after I put that intention out, these orbs of light appeared in front of me, like physically appeared and were doing things, and brought an overwhelming sense of peace and tranquility and beneficence with them. And those are things that really happened to me. And so I know that these light beings exist. And so, you know, this is what would be termed as angels in traditional religion. I believe it's the same phenomenon. And maybe that is the thing that I was communicating with during my scrying sessions, maybe not. But I have definitely seen light beings before. They're real, as far as I'm concerned. They're as real as my two cats. So that part of it as well seems to have some truth to it. So that part of you know, what Kendrick is saying, it seems to have some truth to it as well. Angels really do exist, or at the very least, light beings, if you want to call them by that terminology instead. You know, and some people that acknowledge that these orbs of light appear and sort of have interactions with people, often linked to the UFO or UAP phenomenon. Some people acknowledge that, but they say, oh, you know, they're demonic. All of these beings, they're all just demonic. Anything that is not Christian, anything that we don't understand, must be demonic. And I think that is a bit simplistic. It is possible that some of these beings are trying to deceive us and have not so beneficent aims or goals, and could be classed as demonic, I suppose. But I think that there are at least some of them that would indeed be more like an angelic type of a being. And my experience of them has only ever been positive, and has only their influence on my life has only ever brought me more into accord with God's plan. But that's not to say that some of these beings can't be fallen. I'm just going to burn some Palo Santo, if you'll excuse me. But the next proposition that Kendrick sort of talks about in his new album is this idea not only of reincarnation and being born into different bodies as a human being, but this idea that a spiritual entity, like an angel, can be reborn as a human being. That is, you know, that's kind of like another level to it all. But again, I think that this is something that can happen. And I think that this is something where certain people would say that the way that they experience life, they feel as though this does apply to them, that they are some kind of a cosmic being that has been born into a human body. So there's this kind of idea of starseeds, you know, people who say that they are reincarnated space aliens, basically. And, you know, I think that perhaps some of the sort of alien phenomenon is really just us seeing something more spiritual. Perhaps there are space aliens as well. But there are people who believe that they are starseeds, that they come from the Pleiades or Sirius or something like that. And you know, this concept is broader than just kind of extraterrestrials. You know, there are a range of different types of cosmic beings which allegedly have incarnated into human form. Doreen Virtue did a whole book on Earth Angels back when she was kind of part of the New Age movement, talking about angels and other kind of spirits and so forth that could incarnate in human form and, to fulfill some kind of divine mission to help humanity. So it's definitely a thing which is spoken about in spirituality already. Okay, so reincarnation is a thing. Beings of light or angels exist, and an angel can theoretically, and perhaps has in the past, incarnated in human form. What about this idea that a fallen angel can incarnate in human form in order to go through a process of redemption, to regain their state through works of repentance, or just simply learning karmic lessons over several lives so they can raise themselves up to their state of former glory? Is this something which has any precedent? Again, the answer is yes. So, if you go back to Buddhism, for example, they've got a very different idea of the afterlife, or, what happens after you pass on from this life. And they've got heavenly realms and they've got hellish realms, but it's not like the mainstream Christian idea where you go to heaven or hell after one lifetime and you spend eternity there. That's it. No more chances, case closed. What happens in Buddhism, and indeed this is a feature of Hinduism as well, is that a soul can be reincarnated up or down. So if you have done good deeds in your life and you're a human being, you can be reborn as a deva, essentially an angel, in these higher realms. And so that is kind of like going to heaven, but it's not really, because you've been reborn into a different realm, and you can keep going up if your karma allows it. But conversely, if you accumulate bad karma in heaven, which you can do, you reincarnate back down again. And if you're a wicked person, you reincarnate down perhaps to an animal realm, and if you're really wicked, you might find yourself in a hell realm, but again, you don't stay there indefinitely. Once you've accumulated enough good karma, once you have gone through enough of a process of rectification for your past wickedness, you can then ascend upward again. And so even a demon, through meritorious action, could ascend and become something like a divine being eventually. And that's kind of the way the cycle of incarnation works across the realms. And this is also something that exists in more contemporary esoteric schools. So, for example, in the modern Gnostic movement from Latin America, there's this concept of the fallen bodhisattva. And, this is kind of similar to the idea of fallen angels. One who is a bodhisattva in this kind of Gnostic movement would be considered essentially an angel because of the level of consciousness they've been able to reach, and perhaps quite literally can be seen operating the same way as an angelic being, but they're referred to as a bodhisattva in that school. And what can happen, and what has happened quite a few times in human history, is that a bodhisattva will fall. They'll fall from grace. And when that happens, if the bodhisattva repents for having fallen, they can be given a second chance by the divine. And it's exactly as Kendrick describes. By going through various incarnations as a human being and learning karmic lessons and eliminating karma along the way, eventually they are able to restore their bodhisattva state. They are able to again ascend to the level of an angel. So the answer again is yes. An angelic being can be reborn as a human being and can in fact be sent into a human life after they have fallen for the express purpose of gaining the good karma that they need in order to return home. So once again, what Kendrick is talking about is not without precedent. And, if he really is describing what he believes his soul heritage to be, I believe him. I happen to know that such a thing, such a path for a cosmic being is indeed possible. And so I'm very happy that he has released this album and sort of brought some of this stuff to light. And it's a breath of fresh air compared to the sort of really destructive and demonic things that usually come out of the music and film industry in America, which is almost everything now. But this was a breath of fresh air, and it always feels vindicating to see somebody who is famous talking about these things and legitimizing these things a bit. I might leave it there, but I hope that you enjoyed this video, and perhaps you have been thinking about some of these issues recently as you perhaps have come across Kendrick's new album yourself. But if you did enjoy this video, please leave a like, subscribe to my channel to support my work, and if you want to support me further, hit join or thanks down below. But thank you again for listening, and I'll see you next time.